Sometime last year, I saw a tweet recommending a cool little light novel about a trans teen living in the Japanese suburbs. This is the Mimosa Confessions, and after reading the first volume, I was totally hooked. And a little over a year later, the last volume is finally here. There's just one problem. The ending kinda sucks. Okay, so here's the rundown. Sakuma Kamiki is a high school student living his everyday life about as best as a guy like him can. He's got his classmate Hasumi, who he makes idle chit-chat with, and a little crush on his other classmate Natsuki Hoshihara. He's like painfully average, and when I say painful, I mean for him, because his childhood best friend is the star of the school, the super popular, ultra-talented Ushio Tsukinoki. He's got the looks, the grace, the friends, basically everything Sakuma doesn't have, and that's why they grew apart in middle school. Sakuma just couldn't bear to live in that shadow. But you know what else Ushio has that Sakuma doesn't? That's right, gender dysphoria. And when Sakuma finds Ushio crying on a park bench one night wearing a girl's uniform, a story of identity, adversity, friendship, and acceptance begins to unfold as these messy-ass teenagers live their lives in the wake of Ushio's transition. There's love triangles, stolen first kisses, transphobic mean girls, school plays, family drama, the Joker is there. Really, there's quite a lot going on as Ushio makes big waves in the tiny pond of Tsubakioka whether she wants to or not. Now, if any of that sounds remotely interesting to you and you somehow haven't read these books before clicking on this video, then what the fuck are you waiting for? Go read them now. They're like seriously addictive. And it's really cool to see a work in the anime, manga, light novel sphere that's not just like a poorly written allegory or like really shitty actual trans person representation. It takes big swings, and I'd say it hits more than it misses. This series is committed to tackling some really tough subject matter, and I'd say it does it with about as much grace as you could want. Until Volume 5, but we'll get there. Just know that this isn't going to be some slice of life with a trans girl inserted into it. It's a story about real people, except for the Joker, but we'll get there. And they're facing real problems. It's not all gloom and doom, but consider this your warning that the Mimosa Confessions features the trans experience, warts and all. So with that out of the way, let's talk Volume 5. And this is your last warning for spoilers, so skip to the time on screen if you don't want to get spoiled. So after a lot of ups and downs and heart-to-hearts, Sakuma and Ushio have officially started dating. Their dates are pretty awkward, and they're calling it a trial run, which Natsuki points out is kinda stupid and arbitrary, but hey, it's progress. Sort of. If nothing else, it really sets the tone for the rest of the book. Things are dire. Ushio and Sakuma's relationship kinda feels like it's dead on arrival. It's cold as fuck, and the big class trip to the even more cold as fuck Hokkaido region is right around the corner. And that's before the Joker shows up. It really just wears on you. It feels like everything is designed to be as oppressive as possible for Volume 5. And a lot of that is thanks to Itsuku Seta. He's the Joker for high school boys. And my fucking god is he everywhere in this book. Like Majima everywhere, levels of everywhere. He's in your room, he's in the halls, he's in your fucking walls. Just know that whenever Sakuma turns a corner, there's like a 75% chance that he'll bump into Seta in this book. And the thing is, I like Seta as a function to get people to introspect throughout the series. His big thing is that he'll often present another character with an uncomfortable truth or reveal their secrets in order to move the plot forward. Some real the worst person you know just made a great point type shit. And sometimes that works pretty well, but I don't really like him as an actual person with like motivations and interiority. He's just too cartoonish compared to everyone else, and I don't think Volume 5 does a good job of making me care. But that's what like half the book is about. You see, this volume goes to some lengths to humanize Sarah in some way, when really beforehand he kind of is just the Joker. But it spends so much time on it and to so little effect, it's just kind of baffling. The most successful of these attempts, to me, is the playing card game where he dishes out some dubiously believable backstory and shows a sadder side of his clownish and chaotic antics. If nothing else can be believed about him, then one thing that's certain with Seta is that he's a slave to his own impulses. Hell, he lets Arisa beat his ass to a pulp in Volume 3, and this scene interrogates that in some interesting ways. Granted, it tries to draw parallels between dating your school nurse as a middle schooler with dating a trans person, which I think is a bit apples to oranges. But hey, this book does nothing if not undermine itself. So, Seto's been around since Volume 1, and a big point of contention that the other characters have with him in that book is that he has a polycule, because they sort of see it as him cheating on his girlfriends. Oh yeah, and one of the girls he's dating is a middle schooler, so that's great. I grew minor! Eventually, Sakuma is able to sort of come to terms with it, despite Seto being a huge asshole, because hey, it's another queer identity. It's no less valid than Ushio being transgender, right? You might even think it's setting up for something with, a poly ending for the three main characters, but no. The love triangle gets resolved fairly early on, and even before that, it's pretty clear that Sakuma and Ushio are the main romantic pairing. So then let me ask you this. What purpose does the polycule interrogation scene in this book serve? So, if you didn't know, before the class trip, Seto goads Sakuma into going to a cafe to confront him because he spills the beans about his relationship with Ushio, which they had been keeping a secret. What Sakuma doesn't know is that Seto's polycule is there too. And most of the conversation in the cafe isn't even about Sakuma and Ushio. It's basically about the concept of polyamory, which, again, isn't setting up for anything, as this story doesn't have a poly ending. It'd be a lie to say it's not setting up for anything. It's just not setting up for anything that's worth caring about, in my opinion. Because basically, all of this culminates in him driving Sakuma out to the ocean to give a big dramatic speech. Part of it is Seto doing Seto stuff, where he confronts Sakuma with an uncomfortable truth, and we'll get to that. The other part is that Seto confesses his feelings to Sakuma, at least in his own way. Now, nothing this guy says should ever be taken at face value, but we immediately get this Saw-style flashback to the time in the first volume, where Seto is trying to make a move on Ushio, and it's pretty clear that he's being serious. But what's the purpose of all this? If this volume does anything to give Seto a motivation for what he does, then the motivation is pretty much she has no self-control and likes fucking with people, which is abundantly clear from the moment he enters the first volume. His feelings for Sakuma go nowhere, the polycule thing goes nowhere just like Volume 1, and while it's shown he has his regrets in that his own nature often bites him in the ass, he's still a static character in this book. He doesn't develop, he doesn't change his ways, we just learn more about him. And this all just feels like a big waste of time that takes away from the actual central conflict of this volume. So let's talk about that. So before Seto's whole thing of asking Sakuma to join his polycule, he confronts him about the elephant in the room between him and Ushio. Sakuma is not sexually attracted to her, and the thing is, he's right. Again, never trust the Joker, but Sakuma doesn't deny this, and also we see this in action at the start of the book. You see, earlier on, when Ushio goes to kiss Sakuma, he pulls away as he thinks about her pre-transition self. This guy, who is basically constantly gushing about her beauty in the prose of this series from volume fucking 1, pulls away when she goes to kiss him. And that is the major conflict of this final volume. And it's what got me to break out the fucking rantsona for this. It's such a weird backslide for his character. And also, it's just kinda low-hanging fruit for drama with a C4T couple. Now, you could say it's just a mental block because he's in his own head about the relationship, but it's not. And he never denies this lack of attraction. But after all that Sarah stuff that goes nowhere, Sakuma goes to Ushio, and they have a talk about that, and she ends up breaking up with him, which honestly is probably for the best. Seriously, put yourself in her shoes for a second. The boy she's been pining for, who's done so much for her, whether he realized it or not, asks her out. She's pretty skeptical, probably because she's worried he's not seriously considering her as a romantic partner, and is just doing all this out of pity or something, even if we the readers know that's not the case. He doubles down, asks for a chance, and then she finally agrees to go out with him. She's putting a lot of her trust in this guy, and then he basically betrays it all in a nightmare scenario. This is the kind of thing that gets you to second-guess yourself forever. And while all of this is super frustrating, I actually just wish they fleshed this idea out more. Because you see, After that, Sakuma tries to make it up to her by running off with her on an adventure just for the two of them, to overwrite the bad memories of this class trip that he feels he had a hand in ruining. And you know what? I actually really liked that idea. It's also kinda nice that you can feel Seta's rebellious nature rubbing off on Sakuma as he does this big crazy Hail Mary to try and make Ushio happy. Now, things don't go as planned, and that leads into what I like to call the bus ride from hell. On their way to the northernmost part of Hokkaido, a snowstorm leaves them trapped on a bus for several hours. Other than adding to the pure misery of this volume, it actually ends up being a situation where Sakuma and Ushio can talk candidly for once. And they actually do start to discuss Sakuma's sexuality troubles and how that relates to Ushio, but get this. Right when they get to the point where they might actually get to the heart of the issue and why exactly he's having trouble with even just kissing her, the bus ride ends and it's never brought up again. Not in the same way, at least. From here on out, it's basically treated as if Sakuma was asexual. And you know what? You could do something with that. In a series full of struggles with identity and all these nods towards other queer people besides Ushio and Tsubakioka, you could really make that work. But that's just not how it's initially framed. And it's not even really how Sakuma has been portrayed until now. It sort of just uses language associated with asexuality to avoid actually addressing the problem at hand. Because if Ushio were cisgender, none of this would even be a problem for him. So, how is the problem solved? Well, it kinda isn't. Ushio basically settles for waiting for him to actually see her as a woman, and then we get a time skip to after it's not a problem anymore. I actually like the epilogue in a vacuum, but the fact that we just jump to the future where Ushio and Sakuma are living together when the main story ends on what's essentially half a resolution just kinda sucks any joy out of it for me. Like, good job, Sakuma. You're finally okay with kissing your beautiful trans girlfriend. You want a medal? You want us all to clap for you? Should we throw a party? You stupid fucking ass. Speaking of the time skip, isn't it kinda weird that Ushio never changes her name? Like, I get it, not every trans person changes their name, but like, almost all of them do. Actually, imagine if the epilogue kept mentioning this girl Sakuma's dating that we've never heard of before. You'd think this was just a realistic outcome of Sakuma and Ushio's relationship, that they stopped dating sometime after high school. But then, as we go about a day in Sakuma's life, more details come to light that make it more and more clear that this girl is someone we know, until she walks through the door after work and boom, it's Ushio. I might be a genius, actually. So what's the solution to all of these problems? Well, besides less of Seta, in my perfect world, we'd get another volume going into their senior year, where maybe we do fully explore how Sakuma's intimacy issues affect Ushio, and how they continue to work it out. Or maybe we just get some more of Ushio's perspective in this volume in place of all the Seta bullshit. Given all the big reveals it tries to pull, I think that'd make sense. Let us into her headspace. Show us how she really feels about Sakuma and their relationship. I just don't think the ending we got works all that well without either of those things. I do think it's worth noting that the author, Mei Hachimoku, is, to my knowledge, a cisgender man. I don't think that excludes him or any other cis person from writing narratives about trans people, but I do think it explains why Volume 5 is just so uninterested in exploring Ushio's perspective on everything that's going on. I mean, it explains why the story is told from Sakuma's perspective in general, but it's just really noticeable this time around. Also, in my research, I learned that the Mimosa Confessions has audiobooks in Japanese. There's a whole voice cast and everything.
大事な話があります。なんて、真剣な顔で言うものだから、みんな身構えた。大事な話。なんだろう。
Now, I was mostly just curious about who they got to play Ushio. And to my surprise, it's Arthur Lounsbury, Mr. Fuda Milgram himself. Also this guy from Digimon.
Some nice friends you got there, Davis.
I can't lie though, it's just kinda lame to see yet another trans character voiced by a cis person. But hey, not like Western media is any better in that regard. Now, make no mistake, I don't think this is just a case of readers settling for the bottom of the barrel when it comes to queer stories. The Mimosa Confessions is like actually top shelf stuff, and I think the positive word of mouth you may have heard is 100% warranted. Hell, Volume 4 was my favorite so far. It's not just a rare story about a canonical trans character, it's an extremely compelling narrative that uses queerness to explore so many different character dynamics without shying away from the rougher parts of the experience. I think if this were a worse book series, I wouldn't be so frustrated with this ending. But as it stands, it's a fantastic series that just kind of falls apart at the finish line. It's still absolutely worth reading. You just kinda have to brace for impact when its wings melt and it starts plummeting into the ocean of mid. Okay, so now that I'm done with all that, I'm gonna go experience the real peak of transgender media, Bloodborne. Thank you so much for watching this video. I'd like to give a shout out to Ricky Hirsch, whose blog posts on the first 3 books partially inspired me to make this video. There'll be links in the description. And also to my friends who are supporting my silly little video essay endeavor. This is my first time making something like this, so it'd mean a lot if you could leave a like or a comment if you enjoyed it. Okay, it's October. I'm gonna go play horror games now.